Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. It is the 23rd of June. Yes, that's right. 3 years ago today, we had the referendum on whether to remain or leave the European Union, and it was the biggest ever vote carried out in this country, and by a majority of 1.3 million, much to the surprise of really not just the political class and media class, but the world. Leave won. And yet we are absolutely no nearer to leaving than we were on that day. Which, of course, brings us to the big story of the moment, which is who is going to become the next Prime Minister of our nation. Is it Boris Johnson or is it going to be Jeremy Hunt? And I wonder, what's the mood on Brexit in the country? And that is worth thinking about. Professor John Curtis, Strathclyde University, and I think acknowledged generally to be the most independent, perhaps best commentator on politics in the country today, makes an observation, which is that the Leave vote has hardened recently. And that is confirmed with a piece of polling out overnight from Opinion. And they say, when given the binary option, namely, if no deal's going to be agreed, if no new treaty is going to be agreed, and remember it's been rejected 3 times already, what should happen? Should we leave on the 31st of October with no deal, or should there be a delay and a second referendum? And the results, I think, are very interesting. 48% of UK adults say that if we can't agree this treaty, then we should leave on WTO rules on the 31st of October. 40% would opt for a delay and a second referendum. So actually, given the choice, now a very large majority of people just want to leave. Why? Because they've had enough of it. It's been going on for 3 years and people just want resolution. So the question really is, who is going to deliver that Brexit? Is it going to be Boris Johnson or is it going to be Jeremy Hunt? Now, yesterday in Birmingham was the first of 16 hustings, unbelievable number, that are going to take place around the country. For a month, this is going to dominate. And who was invigilating? Who was in the chair? The Grand Inquisitor yesterday? Well, of course, it was LBC's own Ian Dale. And there was one particular question that Ian asked that I'm very keen to talk about. Ian, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
Well, it was a very big event and a big moment. And so Boris Johnson was first up. Was that the spin of a coin, or how did that work?
I think it was a spin of a coin. I think that was decided either the day before or in the morning. And I think they're going to alternate now in the 16 hustings. So one will go first on one day and then the other one will go first on the next.
And I understand of the 16 hustings, you're going to be presiding over a fair few of them.
10, yes.
10. Well, there you are.
A glutton for punishment.
Well, it must mean they trust you, Ian. That can't be a bad thing. But there was one particular question right at the very beginning when you sat down with Boris. Just share with listeners the question that you asked him.
I said, look, I think everyone, having read the papers that day, will want to know why the police were called to your house in the early hours of Friday morning. And, obviously that was the question on everybody's list, whether they were in the hall or not. Now, he didn't really want to answer it, so I persisted. That was my job. Imagine what would have happened if I hadn't even asked the question. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise that I was going to ask a question like that. And I think it was entirely relevant, entirely appropriate. I'm getting a bit of flack on Twitter for saying, well, it's his private life. It's got nothing to do with how he would do the job as Prime Minister. Well, I beg to differ. If the police are called to your house in the early hours of the morning, whatever the circumstances, that becomes a matter of public interest.
No, I agree with that. But Ian, let me ask you, did you expect him to answer the question? Did you expect him just to try and knock it away time and again?
If I'd been him, I would have addressed it in the opening speech, because that would have made it much more difficult for me to then address it in questions. I still would have, but it would have, I think, diffused the whole situation. All he needed to do, I think, was say, well, we've all had difficult weeks, we've all had stresses, we've all had rows with our partners. I'm sure everyone in this room would have, and they would have all nodded their heads and probably agreed. But he didn't do that. And he was quite clearly not going to answer the question, which is why, I had 15 minutes to interview him. And I was intending to spend about 2 minutes on that maximum. In the end, I spent 5 because I thought, well, sorry, I've got to push him. That was my job, to push him. And I don't think I would have had any credibility as an interviewer if I hadn't done that.
No, I agree with you. And I have to say, the Sunday Express front page, why won't Boris tell us what happened? And I think, I think many of us are thinking that. I mean, there are almost two separate questions here, aren't there? I mean, there is the one that you asked him about, does a politician's private life affect their job? But as you say, when the police have been called, just to refuse to answer it, doesn't it mean the next time there's a hustings that you're likely to ask him the same question again?
Well, that's a good question that I can't answer because I don't know how this story will have moved on. I'm not doing the next one on Thursday because obviously I'm doing my LBC show.
Sure.
LBC listeners come first. But I'm doing another. In fact, I'm doing one in Exeter on Friday, Carlisle and Manchester on Saturday. So I don't know whether this will still be a story then. I think the whole issue of character of a Prime Minister will still be relevant. It's relevant to Jeremy Hunt. And of course, the challenge yesterday was to question Jeremy Hunt in a reasonably robust style as well. But of course, he hadn't got that kind of question to answer.
No.
I gave him a bit of a rough ride on Brexit because I'm sure you would describe him as a bit of a flip-flopper on Brexit, and which he obviously denied yesterday. But I do think that while Brexit inevitably is going to dominate these hustings to an extent, we do need to tease out some more, some less woolly answers from both of them.
Yes, I mean, I listened to your questions on HS2 and on third runways, and Boris didn't seem to want to answer anything, actually, yesterday. Were you surprised, Ian, that when you were pushing and asking him to answer the question, what happened, were you surprised that you got booed quite loudly by what seemed on the television to be quite a large number of delegates?
I wasn't surprised in the least. In fact, I predicted it. I said to Brandon Lewis, the Tory party chairman, earlier that morning, I said, I am going to get booed here, and I completely understand it. I don't think it's very edifying for any political party supporters to boo a journalist who's doing his or her job. I think Beth Rigby from Sky News and I are going to form a mutual support group. I've been booed by the Tories.
Yes.
And it's not a good look, and people, of course, then say, "Well, it's Donald Trump's fault," because let's face it, everything is, and he has whipped it up in America against the media. I think that is less so here. But look, they thought I was spending too much time asking questions on this subject and should move on. They made their views clear. It wasn't persistent booing; it was just at one point, and I mean, it didn't bother me at all in a sense, but it didn't. It didn't look good. It didn't sound good on the media.
Now, and Ian, can I ask you, from the inside, as you clearly are at the moment, the BBC were supposed to be having a head-to-head debate, a sort of question time special, I think is what was being talked about. Do you think the Conservative Party, after what happened with that appalling debate that took place last Tuesday, do you think the Conservative Party are going to say yes to the BBC hosting this or not?
It's nothing to do with the Conservative Party. It's to do with the two individual campaigns. I think that in a race like this, where we are going to get a new Prime Minister, I think that both camps should agree to do interviews or some sort of debate with every single major broadcaster. There seems to be a doubt as to whether Boris Johnson is going to submit himself to Kay Burley's questioning on Tuesday. I think they should be doing things with Sky, Channel 4, BBC, ourselves, and whoever, because not all there's only Conservative Party members that have a vote in this, but they can't all go to the hustings, and they aren't all going to stream the hustings. So I think that it is, just from a democratic accountability point of view, they really ought to be doing it with everybody.
And of course, you've been interviewing the candidates here on LBC, but Mr. Johnson has yet to arrive in this studio.
That is true, and I would hope that the events of yesterday aren't going to affect my chances of getting him into the studio. But you never know. I mean, I haven't heard from the Boris Johnson camp. They haven't said yes, but they also haven't said no. So I live in hope. OK,
Ian, thanks very much indeed. Well, that was LBC's own Ian Dale, who, of course, broadcasts here Monday to Thursdays, 7 till 10. And he was the man that asked that question of Boris Johnson yesterday. I mean, look, I don't know what happened in that house, and I think it's absolutely appalling that the neighbours chose using their telephone to record it. They called the police. They may have had good reason, they may not. But what struck me about yesterday was, given that the police were called, given that it was dominating the news agenda yesterday, as indeed it is today, Boris could have said simply, look, we had an argument. Who hasn't had an argument with their partner? The police were called. It wasn't necessary. We've got some vindictive people politically opposed to us. The police were there briefly. They could see there wasn't a problem. They left. That's the end of the story. And do you know something? To a large extent, it would have been the end of the story. But now that Boris has point blank refused to answer it in any way at all, he will get asked it, whether it's by Ian Dale or others, he will get asked it again and again and again, and people will say, what's he hiding? What's he hiding? And they'll, I've no doubt, hound his partner Carrie as well. I think Boris should have answered the question. I'd be very keen to get your thoughts on that. More broadly, let's debate over the next hour and 3/4 which of these can best deliver Brexit. And if you think Boris is the man, he's the tough guy, call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think, actually, Boris is looking weaker. Where has the big Boris bravado gone? He seems to be actually backtracking. He won't deliver. Text to 84850. Or maybe you think Jeremy Hunt, very cool, very experienced. Maybe he's the man who can negotiate a new deal with Brussels. If that's what you think, please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, Facebookers, you can comment there too. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:15.
This is LBC.
Love the thrill of exploring? Fly British Airways and experience beyond the ordinary in Tobago. Waterfalls, rainforests, unspoilt beaches and turtles nesting. In Tobago, the undiscovered awaits around every corner. September holidays with flights and 7 nights hotel from $569 per person. Fly from Gatwick. Book by July 2nd at ba.com/Tobago. No one takes you there like British Airways. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability at all protected.
LBC has been looking into home security and how you can feel safe and secure in your home.
Most houses have got 2 cars in. If your neighbour's going away, put one of your cars up their drive. I noticed as I was walking down the road, there's a couple of neighbours that had leaflets sticking out of the letterbox, so I just went in and pushed them in, because that would attract somebody.
Go to lbc.co.uk to hear the conversation in full, plus to enter to win a Blink XT home security camera system and a Sonos soundbar, thanks to Blink Home Security Cameras and LBC.
This year we will sell our 250,000th boiler for free, and you could be that lucky winner. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
You can complain free to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman about missold PPI. Alternatively, if you haven't got the time or the inclination, then just get the claims guys to manage the claims process for you. With the August 29th deadline approaching, time's at a premium anyway. So if you can't find your paperwork or you're not even sure you have PPI, it's definitely time to make a decision and start your PPI claim before it's too late. Text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now.
The Claims Guys.
Paul bumped his knee against the kitchen door. !! He yelled, at which point his wife burst in and bumped the door against his knee again. !! yelled Paul. Swearing, a bad habit, but it can help us tolerate pain until we can find something longer lasting, like new Nurofen joint and muscular medicated patches for clinically proven 24-hour pain relief. Nurofen joint and muscular pain relief medicated plasters contain ibuprofen for pain relief. Always read the label.
Unlock the city with the new Range Rover Evoque. Know your side streets. From your inner city beats. Know your underbelly and where to fill your belly.
Your lamb, madam.
Know your north from your south. Live for the city with the new Range Rover Evoque. Land Rover, above and beyond.
Celebrate 50 years since Charles became Prince of Wales with 2 souvenir magazines, free inside the mail on Sunday. In You, an intimate tour of Highgrove, Charles's breathtaking private sanctuary. In Event, magnificent photos of the most gloriously bonkers pageant in royal history. 2 Prince Charles souvenir magazines, free inside the mail on Sunday.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
So, they've had the first hustings. Boris would not answer that question about why the police were called. But let's just move on, if we can, to Brexit. What did they say about Brexit? Well, Boris said we have to prepare for a no-deal exit, a WTO exit on the 31st of October, and by doing so, that's how we get a deal. And Jeremy Hunt said, we have to prepare to leave on no deal, and he would be prepared to do so, although he rather thought Parliament might stop him from doing it. Which of these men is going to deliver Brexit on the 31st of October? Is it Hunt? Is it Boris? Or is it neither? Let's ask Martin in Dunmow, who's a regular caller. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
Welcome. I'm fine. So, who's going to deliver Brexit, Martin?
Well, just one first thing. On your overnight poll about Brexit and 48% saying they wanted to leave that deal,
yes.
Did you see the London Economic poll last night that put your vote down to 23%?
Yeah, there was a reason for that they were waiting back.
There is.
No, it depends with opinion polls whether you use weighting back.
You like them or not?
No. Yes, that's true. Always, with all people in public life. Of course, Martin, absolutely. But one of the problems with the polling industry is they nearly always weight back to the results of the last election. And if you're a new party, you will always get done down by that. But anyway, that aside.
Going on to Brexit.
Yeah.
Well, there's two reasons that it won't happen. First of all, there's the one we all know about Parliament, John Bercow. As they did before, they'll find a way to stop it. But let's just say they can get it through on the 31st of October.
Uh-huh.
Now, both the candidates know, Hunt and Boris know, that on the day after, there'll be a 10% tariff on car sales. There'll be a 20 to 40% tariff on food and fisheries. So the car sales within 6 months will have gone. We'll have no car industry at all in the UK. And there'll be up to 1 million people in the food and fisheries lose their jobs.
Is that all? Only 1 million?
Possibly more, but connected ones. Because half our sales go to Europe are food and fisheries, and with the 20 to 40% tariff, they won't buy them. They'll get them from elsewhere in the biggest economic market in the world. The 600 million people they can sell it to there. So they won't buy our cars. They won't buy our food and fisheries. There simply will be madness to. Why pay extra?
And will we buy? And will we? And of course, we are massive net importers of food from Europe. Will we go on buying their food?
Well, the important thing to them, as you know, is the integrity of the single market. So it won't bother the EU and Mr. Barnier to put the tariffs on. They're not going to send the
really. So it won't bother. So it won't bother French. So if we stop buying all French cheese and all French wine, it won't bother the French.
The integrity of the single market is what matters most. They can't send a message that you can leave Europe and still get a deal. It'd be madness to do it.
And what matters most to us, Martin? Because very interesting. You've made the economic point. I don't agree with it, but you've made the economic point, the doom and gloom and all the rest of it. But even Jeremy Hunt yesterday said that this is actually about democracy. It's about delivering on a democratic result. Do you see that argument?
You've said earlier that only 48% wanted our Brexit, so that means most people don't want to leave without a deal, so we know that.
How 48% plays 40 suggests to me there's now a very large majority would rather we left...
No, 48,
hang on.
Isn't a majority, it's a minority,
well, that's
Nigel.
48 plus 40, right, is 88, because there are 12%.
No, 40, it means there isn't an appetite for leaving with no deal.
Let's take out the non-voters then. It's 56%. All right? So there is now a very clear majority who say they want to leave on the 31st of October on WTO terms if no treaty can be...
Who's on WTO terms in the world? And how many people in Britain understand the WTO rules?
Martin, we voted 3 years ago today to leave in a referendum. We haven't left. Do you understand why people are really unhappy with that?
I understand, but I'll tell you what, getting near the time when the people in the car industry realise they haven't got a job and people in food and fisheries realise they haven't got a job, that's why Jeremy Hunt is being disingenuous, because he quoted the farmer that he knew would lose his job if we went out under no deal. And he said, but nevertheless, we would leave if we had to. He knows it isn't going to happen. So
all the more reason to use Article 24 of the GATT Treaty and give ourselves a couple of years where everything's frozen whilst we can negotiate something. Martin, you will call again. We'll argue this again. I've no doubt. I'm going to go to Charles in Birmingham. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning, Nigel. The one I would like in is Boris Johnson, obviously, because I do trust him, because he's been a Brexiteer right the way through. He's done all that, and I do believe he will get us out. Now, the problem with Jeremy Hunt is he was a Remainer, same as May was. And yesterday I heard him say, if we need a deal and we need a couple of more weeks, we'll have a couple of more weeks. So he's not going to take us out on the 31st. And I don't trust him whatsoever.
And you do trust Boris to deliver, yeah?
Yes, I do. But also, what people are forgetting is, come November, as you know, we get a new commission at the EU. So this new commission are not going to want us to walk around on no deal, because they've got to get a reputation of sorting things out, because we won't have the old commission do any good, will we? We'll have a new one.
But Boris seems to think, Charles, and I will, later on in this hour, play the full text of what both of them said yesterday on Brexit. But Boris seems to think that he can go to Brussels as the new British Prime Minister and completely reset the agenda in terms of when we have to pay the money, how and when we talk about the backstop. He was even talking, Charles, yesterday about a 2-year implementation period. So do you actually think, I'm going to ask you this, Charles, straight, do you actually think Boris is going to be able to go to Brussels and completely rewrite the withdrawal agreement?
No, I don't think he will. I think they will give us... I don't know what they'll do, but they might give us something. They might remove the backstop for this new thing he's on about. But, to me, I think he will still take us out on the 31st, because if we're not out on the 31st, whoever is the Prime Minister, the Conservative Party will be finished, and we will have to have a general election, and you know what that means.
Well, Hunt yesterday said that a general election would mean Corbyn getting into government.
Yeah. Not necessarily.
No, I agree with you, Charles. Maybe for Boris, the best outcome is a general election where he has a very clear Brexit policy, and if people like you in the country believe him, he might win a big majority.
Because you'd have 4 parties. You'd have yourself, Party, Labour, the Lib Dems, and that. So the vote would be split. So it could be, again, a coalition between the Brexit Party and the Conservatives.
Yeah. Well, Charles, all these things are possible. But, of course, if he has to go to a general election, I wonder when it'll be. Charles, thank you for your call. Boris has proved that he's just like us and has a tiff with his other half every now and then. And just like us, he lives in the real world. Yeah, I don't think the fact there was an argument is the issue particularly. I don't think, and I think very few people would think that the neighbours recording it was a really very good or nice thing to do. It is just the fact that the police were called, and that's the question Boris just would not answer. Morning, Nigel. As a Brexiteer, they both worry me on their commitment to delivering a clean Brexit. Hunt strikes me as May 2.0, and Boris Johnson seeks the office itself and will say whatever he thinks will achieve it. Raab was the only true leaver, says Pete in Wantage. Patrick in Chelmsford says Hunt reaffirmed his position as the Remainers' insurance policy yesterday. Well, Patrick, I think we will in a minute. In a minute, we'll examine both of those words very, very carefully. Let's go to Elaine in Peterborough. Good morning, Elaine.
Good morning to you, Nigel. Nice to speak to you, Brexit Party member. I just think... first of all, can I just say I think there'll have to be a general election, because I don't think either of them can deliver. I seriously don't trust Hunt, because 4 days after the referendum, I mean, he's a Remainer. He was, campaigning for a customs union and everything else that went with it. So I cannot see that he's going to be able, wholeheartedly with his heart, because that's what it'll take as well. And I just don't know whether Parliament will allow a no deal. So I think it will have to go to the country.
Yes, I mean, he's got two choices here, hasn't he, Elaine? Either Brussels bend to his demands, and I would give that around about, in percentage terms, around about 0%, I think.
Yeah.
So would I. I mean, firstly, there's no one there; they're on holiday. Secondly, the commission are all leaving and being replaced by a new mob on the 1st of November. Yeah. So I just don't see that at all.
No.
So if that option comes to naught, as I'm almost certain it will, then he has the choice, as you say, of right, we're leaving on the 31st of October. But if he does that, maybe his own party would bring him down. So calling a general election, risking having just got the job he'd coveted for most of his life. Is he really going to do that, Elaine?
Well, I think if we want Brexit, I think that's the only way. I don't know whether they will do it.
No, I know you want...
We've seen what's happened over the last 3 years.
Elaine, you want Brexit. I get that.
Well, I think if yes, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if they want to be true to the majority of this country, but you see, there's always the hanging on to the PM ship. I'm sorry, I'm quite cynical.
I think you've got... look, 3 years after the referendum, to the day, I think you've got every right to be a bit cynical.
I am. I don't know how it's all going to play out. I just hope that our party will play a significant part, in... If there is a general election,
one thing that may embolden Boris, and may indeed, for that matter, embolden Hunt if he were to win, is the fact they think, goodness me, if we don't deliver this, the Brexit Party will eat into our vote. Elaine, thank you. And reaction thus far to this Tory leadership campaign is actually quite interesting, because there's sort of a tale of two halves. Thus far, according to the polling, and this is out in the Observer today, the Tory faithful trust Johnson more than Hunt, and it shows that actually amongst Conservative Party members, Boris Johnson still has a very significant lead, perhaps nearly 20% in some parts of the Tory party, over Jeremy Hunt. What I thought was equally interesting, and Martin from Dunmow did make the point that everyone uses polls to suit their own argument, and there is some truth in that, but this is interesting. In the Mail on Sunday, what the polling is suggesting is that actually out there in the country, so among all voters, when they were asked who would be the best Prime Minister, well, a week ago, Boris Johnson had a lead over Jeremy Hunt. As of yesterday, Jeremy Hunt had a lead over Boris Johnson. So what that snap, and it is a snap poll, in the Mail on Sunday suggests, is that in the country, people have lost, at least for now, a bit of faith in Boris Johnson. The trouble is there are lots of electorates here. There's the Tory party membership and then there's the country. And they're often absolutely not the same thing. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 10:30 and time for the news with Philip Chryssikos.
Boris Johnson's popularity ratings appear to have taken a tumble after it emerged police were called to the South London home he shares with his partner. A survey for the Mail on Sunday claims backing for the prospective Conservative leader and Prime Minister has fallen sharply, despite Scotland Yard saying there was no cause for action. Merseyside police are looking for 3 boys as young as 12 years old after a suspected homophobic knife attack on 2 men in Liverpool. One of the victims is in hospital with serious injuries. A Foreign Office minister is in Iran for what his department is describing as frank and constructive talks. Separately, President Trump is warning military action against Iran is still an option for its downing of an unmanned US military aircraft. LBC weather, rain in the southwest, moving to western and central parts as it moves north, turning heavier with thunder, sunny and warm elsewhere, a high of 27 degrees.
The Battle for PM. Follow it live on LBC. Sheila Fogarty, Monday to Friday from 1 p.m.
I think the opposite, Colin. I think it will mobilise both sides enormously.
Well, I don't think.
And will you vote?
I don't know. It depends on how you.
I can't imagine why you wouldn't if you're this passionate about your position.
I know what's going to happen. There'll be 3 questions, and they'll lower the voting age to 16.
What if there are 2 questions and it's the same age of voting? Will you vote? I can't imagine.
I already voted.
Sheila Fogarty.
With Blink Home Security Cameras, helping give your family peace of mind.
LBC.
Looking for your perfect kitchen? Visit roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
London. We have a problem. Our air is toxic, and driving polluting vehicles is the main cause. The air that I breathe, that my friends breathe, that my mum and dad breathe, and that you breathe, can cause lifelong diseases. But there are solutions, like making our transport greener and creating better spaces to walk and cycle.
These are just some of the ways the Mayor of London and TfL are helping to improve air quality across the capital. Find out how you can make a difference too. Search Let London Breathe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
So much
confusion. This deal or that deal. Why can't the news be simple? It does sound like a bargain. What if you're being ripped off? Confused.com guaranteed to beat your renewal quote, helping you rise above the clamour of comparison sites. It's that easy. Beat your renewal quote guarantee, or you'll get the difference in an extra £20. Don't be confused. Be confused.com. Full T's and C's online. Single annual policies only.
Celebrate 50 years since Charles became Prince of Wales with 2 souvenir magazines, free inside the Mail on Sunday. In You, an intimate tour of Highgrove, Charles's breathtaking private sanctuary. In Event, magnificent photos of the most gloriously bonkers pageant in royal history. 2 Prince Charles souvenir magazines, free inside the Mail on Sunday.
Little Red Riding Hood has been trying to sell her grandma's home for some time now, but the estate agent's shiny, sharp teeth have left her with sweat on her brow.
Trust me, darling, I just want what's best for you, hence the added fees.
However, she spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who cut out the middleman and guaranteed a sale in as little as 48 hours with no fees whatsoever. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Yeah, it's true. In that leadership debate, they did talk about HS2. They did talk about the third runway at Heathrow, taxes, etc. But it is Brexit that's absolutely going to dominate who becomes the next Conservative Party leader and Prime Minister. And of course there's been a rush of people joining the Conservative Party over the course of the last year. A lot of them, I have to say, former UKIP members, etc. People, I mean, a lot of Eurosceptics have joined the Conservative Party, and that, thus far, has tipped the scales very much more in favour of Boris Johnson. But with 15 more hustings to go, and given that no favourite has ever won the Tory leadership since this style started back in 1965, who is to say? So which of them would deliver it the best? Let's go to Ellis, who's calling from Windsor. Good morning, Ellis.
Morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. So which one of them is going to deliver this? Or is it neither?
Well, so I'm a Conservative Party member. I personally will be voting for Boris Johnson. However, I think there's a couple of points. I think on the incident on, well, we don't know, I believe it was Friday night.
I think it was actually it was Thursday night. It was Thursday night, so it actually was after it had been confirmed that Boris Johnson was in the last 2. So, you know, whether he'd been out celebrating or I don't know, but it was actually Thursday night it happened.
So there's a couple of points that I don't think people have yet picked up on yet, and that's that The Guardian have this recording and yet haven't published it. So actually, think into that how you will, but my thing into it is that it's very minimal. He's had a bit of an argument, and personally, I know Ian, who is a very diligent, fantastic interviewer, was completely right to ask him the questions yesterday.
Yes.
However,
I agree.
Had Boris spent 10 minutes answering the question, that would have been all over today's front pages. Whereas I think Boris Johnson's job is just to keep his mouth shut, not say anything too controversial, and he walks through the door at number 10.
Ellis, you're wrong. Ellis, you're wrong. I'm really going to disagree with you on this. Look, here's the answer to Ian Dale's question. It was late at night. I was tired. We just had a bit of an argument. It got a bit noisy. Nothing untoward happened. The police were called by neighbours who were looking for trouble. They arrived. They saw there wasn't a problem. They left, and that would have been the end of it, Ellis. As it is, it's going to drag on day after day after day. That's my view.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I don't quite agree. I think
it's all right. It's a democracy. We can disagree on LBC, can't we?
I know. We'll perhaps we could have 12 votes, and then we'll see what we can get to.
Right. Okay. So you think Boris is right not to have commented on it? Fine. Do you take any note of this opinion poll in the Mail on Sunday showing there's been quite a big shift over the last 48 hours against Boris in the country?
Not really. I think Boris has done a very, very good job of just plodding along. He's giving out quiet
Plodding
policies.
along. Ellis, do we want a plodder to be the next Prime Minister? I thought the whole point of Boris was the big pizzazz, the charisma, the ebullience. I mean, he looks like a different person at the moment.
But also, I don't think he wants to tear the Conservative Party apart.
I
think that's what he wants to do.
So we're not leaving on the 31st of October then?
No, well, in order for us to leave on the 31st of October, he needs to somehow unite this party. Because let's face it, whatever he does, he's got to get through the Commons. Now, there is one thing he can get through the Commons, and that's a change to the withdrawal agreement with a change to the backstop. We know that he can get that through because it's already been voted through. So if he can keep, and as long as he doesn't offend or upset too many wings of the party, keeps pretty centre-grounded, gets the changes he needs, I think we can leave on the 31st. And if not, then hopefully Bercow hasn't taken the option of no deal off the table for us.
So you're hoping then that he gets a couple of tweaks to this appalling new European treaty and that it's Boris Johnson that pushes that through the House of Commons?
To be honest with you, Nigel, I'd much rather have left on the same campaign that you and I stood on, which was to leave properly. However, I'm very concerned that if we don't get something through, there'll be no Brexit. So quite frankly, as long as we get a few changes, I think he'll get it through. And then let's just get out of this thing, and then we can probably try and, over the next few years, renegotiate and change it. But let's just get out, for God's sake.
But the European Union want to force us into having a second referendum, don't they?
I completely agree, but the moment we're out that door...
Right, Ellis, let's keep wargaming this, all right, you and I. So, he goes to Brussels on July the 23rd, the day after he's become British Prime Minister, and he finds the doors are locked. Do you know why, Ellis? They're all on holiday. It's closed. It's closed. There's no one there. And then, when they all come back at the end of August, we immediately go into a process that lasts for weeks of hearings for the new European commissioners. Who's he going to talk to? Who's he going to meet?
In that case, we've got to leave on the 31st of October.
Fine, but he can't do that without people like Philip Hammond threatening to vote him down or leaving the party.
No, I think, to be honest with you, I think he has sharpened minds. I think one of the best jobs that you've done in the Brexit Party is actually sharpen the minds.
What, by scaring them?
Those, and focus the minds as well of the Conservative Party. Because I'll tell you one thing, and there are Labour Party members as well, Labour Party MPs as well, who are genuinely scared by the rhetoric coming from that Labour front bench at the moment. That Labour anti-Semitic message that is coming across. They are scared of putting Corbyn in number 10. And if there's one thing that your party has done, it is focus the minds of people and knowing that if there were a general election tomorrow, those leave-backing seats, which are marginals, could go absolutely either way if a big chunk of the Conservative vote is taken by the Brexit Party. And quite frankly, there is nothing more terrifying than Jeremy Corbyn in number 10.
Well, I could counter that with other arguments, Ellis. I could say to you that if the Conservatives hadn't split the Brexit vote in Peterborough, the Brexit Party would have won, wouldn't they?
Well, I thought the Conservatives had an excellent candidate in Peterborough. And
No.
the only reason we polled as well. Hold on, just let me finish. The only reason we polled actually well was because we had a good candidate.
So you let Labour in, you polled well, and you let Corbyn win a seat in Peterborough. What are you doing, Ellis?
We could not.
Why on earth do you want Labour to win seats like Peterborough?
We don't.
But that's exactly what you did. It was a two-horse race. It was Labour v the Brexit Party. You fought a big campaign in Peterborough. You let Labour in. Ellis, I'm astounded by you, really.
No, and what? So you're just saying the Conservative Party should have not fielded a candidate?
Well, that really depends, doesn't it? There are now parts of the country in which the only challenge to Labour will come from the Brexit Party. If the Conservatives fight those seats, it'll become vote Conservative, get Corbyn.
Yeah, and that's the concern. So, to bring us back to point, if we delivered Brexit by the 31st, I think there's a very, very good case to say that we should be able to win any general election.
All right. Ellis, listen, it's been a great conversation. Thank you. And John in Maidstone, very much agreeing with Ellis. He says the fear of the Brexit Party will bring the Tories back together. Maybe it will, although you've got to recognise these differences of ideology are absolutely huge. I'm going to go to Trevor in Bitton Park, Southampton.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
I am still 100% with you, like I have been for the past 3 years plus. The only thing I disagree with you on now is the fact that we need to give Boris our support. I'm an ex-Conservative voter. I voted for the Brexit Party. I will never vote Conservative again unless we get a proper Brexit. And we need your endorsement of Boris Johnson and your assistance, because you carry millions of people's votes with your opinion, and so does Boris. There would be no Brexit without you and Boris.
Trevor, let me be absolutely clear with you, all right? If Boris stands up and goes for us leaving on the 31st of October and really, really means it, and is prepared to risk being brought down by Parliament, is prepared to go to the country to seek the endorsement of the country in a general election, he'd have my support, Trevor. I believe he was doing absolutely the right thing. But at the moment, I don't trust him, Trevor. And you know why? Because twice he told us that Mrs May's new European treaty was a dreadful deal. It would lead us to becoming a vassal state. He wrote all sorts of strong comments against it in his Daily Telegraph column. And then, Trevor, when the going got tough and the pressure was applied, at the third time of asking, he voted for it. Trevor, I put it to you, I couldn't unconditionally support Boris, could I?
I mean, I agree with what you just said, Nigel. I just think he was playing the loyal party line so that he gets the leadership. But we need him to have the leadership.
But
because
Trevor,
without Boris Johnson...
But what if it's a Prime Minister? What if he plays the loyal party line?
If he plays the loyal party line, if he doesn't deliver a proper Brexit, I don't mean a withdrawal agreement that's rehashed, because we won't support that.
Sure.
And ex-Conservative voters that are now with you, they won't be fobbed off by any nonsense. We want a proper Brexit and nothing less. All I'm saying to you, Nigel, is let's not join in the Remainers undermining him now and trying to bring him down. I don't care about Boris Johnson. I care about Brexit and democracy.
Okay,
I think
I'm the same as you. I'm the same as Trevor. I'm the same as you, and I'm encouraging him. I'm encouraging him to do the right thing. I just suggest, Trevor, that the recent track record is concerning. Thank you, as ever, for your call. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:45.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
Extraordinary scenes at this black tie dinner when the Chancellor Philip Hammond's giving a speech and then one of his Conservative colleagues, Mark Field, leaps into action. Should Mr Field be suspended, sacked, possibly even prosecuted? Chris in Oxford.
She's a trespasser. I don't think he should be sacked. If anything, I think he should be congratulated.
Stephen Lambert.
And I'm afraid it's not acceptable at all.
It's not acceptable. He didn't punch her, he didn't kick her.
OK, so if he was kicking and punching her, that would be wrong. But grabbing her around the neck or pinning her up against the pillar is OK.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero, get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Air pollution is one of the most significant challenges facing inner and outer London, affecting the health of us all. LBC, together with Transport for London, will be finding out more about the issue and what's being done to address it. This week, Sheila Fogarty spoke to Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan.
All I want to say to Londoners is I'm afraid you can't see this killer, but it is a fact now confirmed by evidence that we have thousands of premature deaths each year in our city. If we do nothing, experts say from King's College it will take 193 years for our air to be within legal limits. With our policies, we'll get there by 2025.
Watch the full interview and find out how you can help reduce air pollution in the capital at lbc.co.uk.
Get an Ocean credit card. Check if you're eligible in minutes without affecting your credit score. It comes with a credit limit of up to £1,500 too. So get online and check for yourself at ocean.co.uk. And get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable.
Unlock the city with the new Range Rover Evoque. Know your side streets. From your inner city beats. Know your underbelly. And where to fill your belly.
The lamb, madam.
Know your north. From your south. Live for the city with the new Range Rover Evoque. Land Rover, above and beyond.
Ever noticed expensive things always seem to break down when you can least afford them?
So if your boiler is on the blink, the last thing you want is to fork out for expensive repairs or a replacement. Rated 5-star excellent on Trustpilot, LS1 Boiler Installation could supply and fit a brand new Worcester Bosch boiler with free breakdown cover and a 10-year guarantee, all with zero deposit and low monthly interest-free payment options. For an instant quote, go to ls1boilerinstallation.co.uk. Conditions apply.
In 1972, Swale Heating was born. Since then, we have sold thousands of boilers from top manufacturers like Worcester Bosch. This year, we will sell our 250,000th boiler for free. And you could be the lucky winner. Visit swaleheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Yeah, I'd say it to you, but maybe not Mum and Dad. I don't think they would be able to do that.
Really? I think Mum will help us. I spoke to her about it before.
Really? What does she say?
I just think she will help us if she can at the time.
If she can, though?
Yeah.
I don't know. Getting onto the property ladder seems like a million miles away.
It isn't easy talking to your family about money, but it is important. The M word from Lloyds Bank. It's good to talk about money.
Your company's doing pretty well. Your tax position's okay. So what's keeping you awake at night?
To face the future with confidence, talk to Vision Consulting. We've expanded from Gants Hill to the Gherkin, with clients from the fishmonger to the multi-million-pound property investment company. And our growth as a firm of chartered accountants and registered auditors is based on our passion for our clients' business.
Have confidence in your accountant. See visionconsulting.co.uk.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
So which of them, Hunt or Johnson, is going to be the best to deliver Brexit? I tell you what we'll do. Let's listen to precisely what both had to say about this yesterday. Firstly, we'll listen to Jeremy Hunt.
The reason that I haven't made the pledge that Boris has made is because I think it's very important that Prime Ministers keep their word. It is entirely possible that Parliament will rule out no deal between now and October the 31st, or indeed, as you were just talking about to Boris, that members of our own party say I was having a sneaky listen from behind the wings, but, members of our own party have said they might vote against the government in that situation. Now, if that happened and Parliament blocks no deal, and remember, they did this in March, the only way to overcome that would be to have a general election and change Parliament. And that would be a profound mistake because it would let Corbyn right in. There'd be no Brexit at all. So we must only promise what we can deliver. I want to get out as soon as possible, and I believe that I have the negotiating skills to give us a better chance of getting a deal that can actually get through Parliament.
So let's be clear then, Hunt's position is fairly straightforward. He did talk earlier on about, if it has to be no deal, I'd do it. But if members of my own party were to stop no deal, then of course I won't be able to do it, and there ain't going to be an election because Mr Corbyn might win. So, there is no guaranteed exit on the 31st of October with Jeremy Hunt, but he believes he can negotiate a better deal in Brussels. Now let's listen to what Boris Johnson had to say.
Someone who has meditated deeply on the opportunities that Brexit could bring our country, I am the right man to unleash now on that project. And in fact, there is a pretty broad consensus, as you saw in the recent, slightly cacophonous BBC debate, about how to do it. You disaggregate the elements of the otherwise defunct withdrawal agreement. You take the protections for the 3.2 million European Union nationals in our country, you put them into law, you reserve the payment of the 39 billion. Creative ambiguity needed there, I think, until the solution. And then, of course, you solve the problems of free movement of goods across the Irish, Northern Irish and other borders to where they logically belong. And that is in the context of the free trade agreement that we will negotiate in the implementation period after we have come out on October the 31st. And we must be able to come out on WTO terms so that for the first time in these negotiations we carry conviction. And it's precisely because we will be preparing between now and October the 31st for a no-deal Brexit that we will get the deal we need. And if we can get this done and get it over the line, then we will pitchfork this incubus off our backs, we will end the sense of drift and indecision, and we will be able to get on with a fantastic modern Conservative agenda. And if I could sum up in one sentence my ambition For this country, it is to unite our country, unite our society, and to bring the whole of the UK together in the way that we were able to do in London.
Well, OK, so he says he will send a signal that we're prepared to leave on WTO terms and continue with our preparations for it. Fine, OK. But then he says we're doing that, and we're saying that because that's how we get a deal. When it comes to the deal, Boris was talking utter nonsense. You know, the idea that we can negotiate the backstop during an implementation period, the idea that they're not going to take the commitment for 39 billion, none of this can be done, Boris, without a withdrawal agreement. If you want to do it that way round, we need a withdrawal agreement, and they're insisting upon a new European treaty. They will not, to quote you, disaggregate that treaty. It isn't going to happen. You might, if you're lucky, get a sort of added codicil or something to it, but they are not going to change the document. So when it comes to either of them being able to negotiate with Brussels and get things fundamentally changed, there's not a cat's chance in hell of that happening, in my view, before November, December of this year. When it comes to simply leaving, well, the question would be, just how brave would Boris be? Would he be prepared to risk being brought down? Would he be prepared to risk people, senior people perhaps, leaving the Conservative Party? Would he be prepared to take this to the country? I don't know is the answer. Daniel is calling from Dagenham. Daniel, you've listened to those clips. Who impresses you the most?
I think Boris, just because he's towing my pro-leave standpoint. Very, very funny turn of phrase there. You pitchforking this incubus off our back.
I know.
The first time I've heard it described like that. I think there's two sides to this particular coin, Nigel. I think, OK, yeah, we've got to get Brexit done, but I think another thing is winning back voters from the Lib Dems and the Brexit Party. I say that as somebody who voted Tory all my life and voted the Brexit Party in the last European elections. I mean, look, are they going to change the agreement? Are they going to negotiate anything differently from when Boris tells me that? I don't think so, and I think he's just paying lip service to the Remain side, which I think is a very good thing to do. Get them on side, get them back in what he's going to do, and then at the last minute, oh, sorry, we couldn't do that. Guess what? No deal Brexit, and then everybody's happy. Well, everybody who voted for democracy is happy. The silent majority, should we call them? Yeah, I mean, as far as his lovers tiff the other day, I don't even want to give that the oxygen of publicity. It needs, that's exactly the sort of thing which leads to the BBC debate. If you heard it the other day, It was just absolutely stale. Everybody was in a straitjacket. They didn't want to say what they really thought because they thought that those playing gender politics and identity politics would jump all over them. And as it turned out, the BBC couldn't even vet their own guests.
Oh, that was appalling. Daniel, I know Boris is in for a tough time. I mean, someone says to me here on Facebook, bit by bit, they'll try and take him down. Any excuse, any reason, just to keep him from number 10. After all, he's not a Remainer. But Daniel, do you agree with me or disagree with me? The way to deal with that question from Ian Dale, which Boris must have expected, would simply to have said, we had an argument, the police were called unnecessarily, end of story, move on.
Yeah,
wouldn't it have been better to say that? The way Boris has dealt with this means it'll come back again and again and again.
That's right. I think he's just pushed it down, and it's just for another journalist to bring it up on another day, and it just gives people to talk about it. If it had ended it there and then, as I say, I don't think we possibly wouldn't be talking about it now.
We might still be talking about it, but not to the same extent, Daniel, I think.
Perhaps not. Perhaps.
No.
Both of them. Looking at Jeremy Hunt, I mean, if you go back a few years, at the time of the junior doctor strike, you couldn't even imagine him being in this position, such was the sort of vitriol that people were throwing at him. And, he, in terms of the good old boys, he's just as pumped into the social pipeline as Boris. He's one of his ancestors was the agent of Madras for the East India Company, would you believe? But I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't think that's his fault, do you, Daniel?
No. Do you know what, Nigel? I reckon, from the other point, I think our leaders should go to the best schools, and they should be from the very best stock. And, when you look at what at the other end of the spectrum, especially in Parliament, especially on the Labour front bench, I think that just that proves my point.
Well, Daniel, Mrs. Thatcher came from a very modest background. Some think she was brilliant, some don't. But, I don't care where our leaders come from. What I care about is where they're going to. Daniel, I thank you for your call. Now, Barry says to me on Facebook, he says, you need to throw your weight behind Boris and give him a chance to deliver Brexit. Barry, as I've explained already, I'm perfectly happy to be supportive and encouraging of Boris Johnson if he wins this contest, which it still looks like he will. But how can I trust somebody who twice votes against this new European treaty, tells us how utterly dreadful it is, and then goes and votes for it? I mean, this is a matter of trust. Goodness me, Theresa May told us 108 times we were leaving on March the 29th, and we didn't. We're now hearing the same thing from Boris, and I have to say, I just simply don't believe it. Now, Peter in Croydon is seeing conspiracy here. Brexit Party offices raided prior to EU elections. Boris, police called to the flat. Trump cleared of collusion, but now the Democrats want to drag it on to the next election just to try and put him down. Well, Peter, there are those out there who would argue strongly about the deep state. Can't say that it doesn't exist, but the facts are, whatever happened on Thursday night down in Camberwell, South London, it's something Boris Johnson could have got rid of. He didn't. So look, I've played you in the last few minutes, both men setting out their Brexit position. I'm asking you, which of those two do you think is best placed to deliver Brexit? Or, like me, are you beginning to really doubt whether either of them are going to keep to this 31st of October deadline? I really, really hope I'm wrong, but I'm beginning to wonder whether either of them can deliver by the 31st of October unless they're brave enough to call a general election. Is it Hunt? Is it Boris? You tell me. 0345 6060 973. Perhaps it's neither of them. Text to 84850. Any other thoughts and views, please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch us live on Facebook and comment there too.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, supporters of Boris Johnson are questioning the motive of a man who called police after hearing a commotion from the South London flat Mr Johnson shares with his partner. Tom Penn is defending his actions, saying it was important to do something. Mr Johnson, the Conservative leadership favourite, continues to refuse to say what happened. Henry Hill, assistant editor at Conservative Home, has told LBC he's critical of Mr Penn for selling his story to the press.
After the police have come, after they've received assurances from both sides that everything is fine, then selling that tape to a newspaper anyway, because of course there are two sides to this, and whatever you think of Boris Johnson, it's not particularly fair on Carrie Simons to have her all over the papers in this kind of story if there wasn't actually anything going on.
And Nigel will continue leading Britain's conversation on that story next. 2 men have knife injuries following a suspected homophobic attack on Merseyside. It's thought 3 children are responsible, aged 12 to 15 years old. There have been no arrests. It's emerged the United States launched a cyber strike against Iranian military computer systems last week. US media say President Trump approved the attacks after the country shot down an American spy drone. The head of Ethiopia's military has been shot dead by his bodyguard. The country's prime minister says the government has foiled an attempted coup led by a high-ranking military official and others in its ranks. A woman is being questioned on 2 counts of assault and 1 of endangering an aircraft after a plane was forced to return to Stansted Airport. The flight bound for Turkey was escorted back to Essex by 2 RAF fighter jets. Several people called emergency services after hearing the sonic boom the Typhoon jets caused, worried that there had been an explosion. Aviation expert Julian Bray has told LBC the role of the RAF in such a call-out.
If somebody is charged or somebody is considered to be endangering an aircraft, then the captain will ask for assistance because they don't know why this person was acting this particular way. In other words, it could have been a terrorist incident. They don't know. So the RAF jets, scrambled, told, go supersonic, break the sound barrier, get there quickly.
North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un says he's received a letter from Donald Trump that contains, in his words, excellent and interesting content. He adds he will seriously contemplate what's in it. Nuclear talks between the United States and North Korea broke down after a summit between the 2 leaders in Vietnam in February of this year. India's cricket captain has been fined 25% of his match fee for appealing too much during the team's World Cup cricket victory over Afghanistan in Southampton yesterday. Virat Kohli has also been penalised for approaching the umpire in an aggressive manner. LBC weather. Rain in the southwest, moving into western and central parts as it moves north, turning heavier with thunder. Sunny and warm elsewhere, a high of 27 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
Swimsuit tick, sun cream tick, holiday money, big tick. Right, I'm off to pick up all the holiday bits from M&S.
What about the holiday money?
I'm picking that up from M&S too. They've got a new click and collect travel money service. It's just so easy.
I didn't know M&S did travel money.
Oh, there's a lot you don't know, like how many outfits I've ordered. M&S Bank's new click and collect travel money service gives you our best exchange rates with preferential rates for M&S cardholders. Order online and collect in store. £250 minimum order. Terms and conditions apply. Search M&S Travel Money.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, the first debate's over. There are 15 more of these to come in the course of the next month. And, of course, it was Ian Dale, LBC's Ian Dale, who was the invigilator yesterday, and who asked that question of Boris Johnson, why were the police called? And answer there came none. They both then set out their plans for how we're going to leave the European Union. And I have to say, I feel Boris should have answered that question, and he perhaps would have dealt with it. We could have moved on. And I'm not convinced that either has a strategy that really works to get us to leave. Well, let me get a different opinion. Let me go to the associate editor of the Daily Mail and, of course, LBC presenter from 7 till 10 p.m. on Fridays, Andrew Pearce. Good morning, Andrew.
Morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. One or two of the callers this morning disagreeing with me. They think, look, Boris shouldn't have answered the question. It's purely his private life and it's got nothing to do with anybody else. But it does seem to me, Andrew, that when the police get called, even if that was a malicious act in itself, that it's a question, I feel, that Boris should have answered in some way. What say you?
Well, it's going to stalk him, isn't it, from beginning to end? And what I think I would have said if I was on that platform, I'd have said, look, couples have rows. That's normal. Couples have noisy rows. What isn't normal is for neighbours to tape the row on their mobile phone. And then once the police have been called, the police decide to take no action for those then neighbours to take that tape recording to a national newspaper. That's what I'd have said if I was Boris Johnson. I think he'd have got a huge round of applause from the people in the hall, and I think further and beyond in the country, people have thought absolutely right. This is clearly a political attempt to embarrass Boris, but that's fair game. He's a politician. We know these people. They went to The Guardian. That's a bit of a giveaway, Nigel. We know that they're big Remain supporters. We know they get funding from the EU for their work, and it was a political attempt to smear him. But his private life has been part of his public persona all the years we've been writing about Boris Johnson because of the affairs. This will be his third wife if he marries Carrie. Bit like Jeremy Corbyn, who of course is on his third wife too, but we never talk about that.
No,
do we, Nigel?
that's right.
And so, because there's so many issues about his private life, this just again draws attention to the fact if the Tory membership choose Boris, they're not getting a conventional Tory leader.
No, that's true, Andrew, and I completely understand that, and I think the Tory members understand that. But, I mean, we're told that the Boris Johnson campaign is very well organised and that he's being sort of guided through every step of this. I mean, do you really think his advisors said to him, Boris, just ignore the question completely? I mean, is he making his own decisions here?
Well, that's a very good question, Nigel, because if I can't believe that people wouldn't be taking the view I'm taking, that he had to say something, just to sit there mute when he's on the front page of every single national newspaper. Even the Times splashed it. Even the Daily Telegraph, where he's the very well remunerated columnist, splashed that story because it's a huge story. Look, he was clearly celebrating. He'd got through to the final two. He'd clearly had one too many, or she'd had one too many.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what happened. And he could have just knocked it into touch straight away. Instead, this will haunt him now until the next hustings and the next TV debate. And I gather he's not going to do the Sky TV debates. Doesn't seem much point in having one if the one part of the duo is not turning up. Bit pointless. And I think his team have to reflect on this and come up with a form of words.
Andrew, you have watched Boris Johnson in all his political incarnations. You've written about him extensively over the years. Have I got this wrong? But I'm watching Boris over the last couple of weeks, And I think, where's Boris gone? Where's the real Boris? Where's the big chest out bravado? I mean, he seems to be sort of, the eyes look a bit sort of sunken. He doesn't appear to be himself.
They've neutered him. They've done it. They've decided to go for a risk-averse strategy, the submarine strategy, I called it in the Daily Mail, not letting him do any interviews, staying below the political radar because they know he is gaffe-prone. But Boris gaffe-prone is more interesting than Boris, who's almost mute. If Boris can't be Boris, there's no point to him.
Well, I agree. It's rather like they sort of, they've cut Samson's hair off, is as it seems to me. And I think if he goes on playing defensively for the next month, I do wonder, all right, the polls say that he's 20 points ahead of Hunt, but goodness me, it's not impossible, is it?
Well, and look what happened in the opinion polls with the general election. Boring old risk-averse Theresa May, who decided not to speak to the public, not to do any interviews apart from that toe-curling one on the One show when we discovered the naughtiest thing she'd ever done was walk through a wheat field.
I know.
But if they try and turn Boris into Theresa May in drag, it is not going to work because Boris is flamboyant, he's fun, he tells jokes, he makes gaffes, but he moves on. He's a very, very clever man. He's a formidable politician, and they've got to let him be himself. Otherwise, there's no point in having Boris. You might as well have the other one who's boring, Jeremy Hunt.
Yeah, I did say the other week that I thought that thus far the campaign had been one candidate who was in hiding, the rest were dull as ditch water, and the only fun one should be a Liberal Democrat. So it's been a very odd campaign all the way through. When you look at this polling on page 2 of the Mail on Sunday today, and it shows, and all right, it's a snap poll, and it, maybe in a week's time it'll be different, but isn't this the real danger for Boris, that if the country increasingly starts to say this bloke doesn't look like a prime minister, that could have an impact on how Tory members vote?
There's no doubt about that, and a few more incidents like this will really seriously rattle the cage, which is why I think they may have to rethink this strategy of getting him out there and doing what he does best. And it's why Michael Gove is so heartbroken he didn't get into the last two, because he has genuine Brexit credentials. Some would argue he's been a Brexiteer long before Boris Johnson. You and I have discussed Brexit with him before he was even an MP, Nigel. And so, although he backed Mrs May's deal, I know why he backed Mrs May's deal, he couldn't possibly be seen to be betraying her because of what he did to Boris in the leadership campaign in 2016. But Michael Gove really thought he could beat Boris in the runoff, and he didn't think there was a chance Jeremy Hunt could. But if they keep Boris on a leash and there's gaffes like this and he doesn't respond to them, who knows? Maybe Jeremy Hunt does a Jeremy Corbyn and almost wins, or even wins. And that's a gift for you, Nigel, because I know you'd rather face a runoff in a general election, and I'm sure you'd rather take on Jeremy Hunt, whose position on Brexit I'm not really sure about.
Well, nor's he.
No, and of course Boris has clarified his position too, as you know. He's no longer saying we're definitely leaving on the 31st of October.
I know, I've seen a softening.
It's eminently doable or eminently something the 31st of October. I mean, there's been a change there, as there has been on his tax plans too. Rather depressing, really.
Now, what I'd rather do, Andrew, actually, believe it or believe it not, is for Boris to win and to be brave enough to go for a WTO Brexit on the 31st of October, which now has very clear backing in this country over the alternative. But I just don't think he's going to do it. Andrew, let me ask you, do you think Boris Johnson, if he wins, will take us out on the 31st of October?
No.
Thank you very much indeed. That was Andrew Pearce, Associate Editor of the Daily Mail, LBC presenter. You can catch him on Friday evenings from 7 till 10 p.m. And Andrew is a Brexiteer, and Andrew, has been a strong Conservative supporter, and he doesn't think either that Boris is going to deliver this. I'm sorry to say, nor do I. Gosh, I hope I am wrong. Lawrence is calling from Colchester. Hello, Lawrence.
How you doing, sir?
Hello, nice to hear from you again. Very well indeed. So, who, if you were voting in this, Lawrence, would you back, on the basis that you want Brexit, would you back Hunt or would you back Boris?
Well, I would back Boris, but do you think Boris is a gambling man, Nigel?
Unintentionally, he's often gambled. Whether he's intentionally a gambler is perhaps... Well, Lawrence, actually, to some extent he is a risk taker. To some extent he is.
Yeah. I think, personally, he knows that you're knocking on his back door.
Yep.
And he's going to use... I'd love to have been with you, Nigel, when you had that drink with him and his old man God knows, I'd fly in the wall that you were talking about. Anyway, that's another story. Who paid the bill, by the way?
Lawrence, again, you see, this. Look, I'm sorry to disappoint you, right? It was a Friday night. And I was going on American television at 1 a.m. or something. I thought, well, I'm going to go out, get something to eat, and I went with a friend. And it just happened by complete coincidence that Boris was having dinner with his father, Stanley. Of course, I know them both. Indeed, Stanley has been a guest on this Sunday morning show here with me on LBC. And I've known Boris a few years, one way and another. And all I did, Lawrence, was I went over, said, hi, guys. We had a quick chat about a few things. Well, I wasn't even there very long. And somebody, which is poor form in my view, but the world we live in, someone takes a picture on their iPhone and posts it. Suddenly it's front page of the Daily Mirror, as if there's been some secret conspiratorial conference has taken place. And Lawrence, you believed it, and it's just the world we live in, I guess.
Well, I didn't believe it, Nigel. I just thought...
you wanted to believe it?
Yes.
So Lawrence, you would vote for Boris. Do you think he's got the guts to stand up and really deliver this?
I wish he'd be himself and stop being PC.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, we had that with Theresa May. 50 of her advisors, Nigel, 10 grand a day they were getting, sir, over the 3-year period. You know, come on, people of London and the UK, think about that. But with Boris, I think he's going to use your party as a bargaining chip to get WTO rules through Parliament. Or there be a general election, and the Tories will be petrified of that. I do think it's going to happen. It will go through. Sooner the better.
All right, Lawrence, thank you for your call. Great stuff. Nigel, the Samson analogy is true of Corbyn and the Labour Party also. This is the castration caused by the media coverage. If the media weren't allowed to oppose candidates, we might have more realism in politics. Alf, you know, the media have always opposed certain candidates. I mean, Winston Churchill, if you go back way before the First World War, I mean, the huge sections of the media loathed Churchill. One of the reasons being, of course, he himself was a journalist working and being the highest paid war correspondent and then journalist in Britain, working for other newspapers. So the idea that because people get attacked by the press, they have to back off and back away is, I think, absolutely ridiculous. Ian from the Wirral makes a very good point. He says, do we want our ministers being spied on, recorded and published? Behaviour like this could compromise Boris's security for terrorism strikes, etc. The result is only increased costs and personnel and personnel to the state purse. Ian, I agree. Look, I think it is, frankly, I think to be recorded, through the wall of the flat or house that you're in, I think is absolutely dreadful. And I'm sure that particular Remainer left-wing couple feel very proud of what they've done. I think it's pretty dreadful. If they were genuinely concerned and they called the police, that's fine. That's absolutely... In fact, that could be an act of being a good neighbour. But to record the whole thing and pass it on to The Guardian, I think it is shocking, and I would say that whoever it had happened to. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it is 11:15.
This is LBC.
LBC has been looking into home security and how you can feel safe and secure in your home.
Most houses have got 2 cars in. If your neighbour's going away, put one of your cars up their drive. I noticed as I was walking down the road, there's a couple of neighbours that had leaflets sticking out of a letterbox, so I just went in and pushed them in, because that would attract somebody.
Go to lbc.co.uk to hear the conversation in full, plus to enter to win a Blink XT home security camera system and a Sonos soundbar, thanks to Blink Home Security Cameras and LBC.
Attention, all minicab drivers in London. You could be paying too much for your insurance. If you're licensed by the PCO and working in and around the London area, you must visit cubitminicabinsurance.co.uk. With us, you could enjoy our special schemes and preferential rates for London private hire drivers. Visit cubitminicabinsurance.co.uk and see how much you could save. cubitminicabinsurance.co.uk.
Right now at Oak Furnitureland, buy a new dining table and you'll get any of our dining chairs half price. The delivery's free too, online and in-store.
The Audi A4 Saloon Black Edition has dark matte titanium alloy wheels. It has a sleek black grille,
a discreet black spoiler, blackened privacy glass and black leather Alcantara upholstery. So you see, when it comes to style, with the Audi A4 Saloon Black Edition, there are no grey areas. Available from £299 per month with an initial rental of £1,794. Offer ends 30th of June 2019. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik. Business users only. Excludes VAT at 20%. 48-month contract hire. T's and C's apply. No ownership. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
So much confusion. This deal or that deal. Why can't so much be simple? It does sound like a bargain. What if you're being ripped off? Confused.com guaranteed to beat your renewal quote, helping you rise above the clamour of comparison sites. It's that easy. Beat your renewal quote guarantee, or you'll get the difference in an extra £20. Don't be confused. Be confused.com. Full T's and C's online. Single annual policies only.
In the middle of a job you just have to finish? Need something fast? B&Q 1 Hour Click and Collect will have it ready for you in store. Simply order online at DIY.com. You click it, we'll pick it, you collect it. Fast, easy and convenient click and collect. You can do it when you B&Q it. Selected products and locations, restrictions apply.
Get Vodafone's double data deal this summer. We're giving away double data on all pay monthly smartphones. Yes, all pay monthly smartphones. Now a huge 30 gig for the price of 15, starting at only £30 a month. Double the selfie sharing, double the playlist pumping, and double the maps mapping. To get double data, go online or in-store today. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone. Terms and details at vodafone.co.uk/summer. Ends 9th of July.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
So who is going to deliver Brexit? Is it going to be Boris? Is it going to be Jeremy Hunt? I don't know. There are 15 more of those hustings to come. Now, Viv says to me, Nigel, do you think Boris is playing soft just to get the job and then push for WTA once he's in number 10? Not really, Viv. I'd love to think that was right. What I do think, and I thought Andrew Pearce expressed it extremely well when we spoke to him before the break, is that Boris is trying to be not Boris in order to get the job because they're worried he might slip up. But if he goes on playing defensively, running and hiding from everything, maybe, just maybe, people will start to think this is not the guy for us. David Davis was so far ahead of David Cameron in the 2005 contest for Tory leader that the bookmakers stopped taking money on David Davis. Don't think it's impossible for Hunt to win. Nothing in modern politics is impossible. Scarlett says it's all about the fame and money for those noisy neighbours. Well, I don't think, I might be wrong here, but I don't think The Guardian do pay for things like that. In fact, I'm pretty certain they don't. Now, they could, of course, sell their story on to somebody else. That's true, Scarlett. As for fame, well, becoming famous because you've recorded your next-door neighbours might make you popular in some quarters, but is likely to make you very unpopular in others. So if they've done it for that reason, I suggest they've probably got it wrong. Morning, Nigel. In this world of data protection and it's all rules and regulations, how does recording a private situation, then sharing it with the media, comply with the law? Keep up the good work, Mark in High Wycombe. Mark, I was wondering this morning, is that why the recording itself has not been issued, has not been published, because maybe that would be just too much of a breach of privacy? At least I hope that's the case. I don't exactly know how media law works on that particular area, but if you can record people in their own houses, goodness knows where would this end. Who will deliver Brexit? Will either of them deliver Brexit on the 31st of October? I'm going to speak to Barbara in Bognor Regis. Good morning, Barbara.
Oh, good morning, Nigel. I don't think either of them will deliver it. Probably not from lack of trying, but it just doesn't seem possible. I just feel that already that Jeremy Hunt is becoming the appeaser. If it wasn't for Brexit, possibly he could be a good Prime Minister. I don't know.
Does he, Barbara, does he look like a Prime Minister, Jeremy Hunt?
Well, they've all been so different. The past.
You see, I think he does.
So I don't know what looks like a Prime Minister.
Well, no, I think
you look like a Prime Minister.
Well, I tell you what the definition of a Prime Minister is, Barbara, or what we want in a Prime Minister. It's somebody who, when the aeroplane lands, in a foreign country and is there to represent us, walks down the steps of the aeroplane and looks like a Prime Minister. That's
well, in that respect, not really, no.
No? OK, fine.
No, but I feel that...
and Boris?
Well, Boris, yes. To me, he's the Boris. The Donald, the Boris.
He's extraordinary, isn't it? It seems now that Boris can't even shave. I don't know whether you've seen these photographs of him, but he appears to have, when he shaved the other morning, just missed out a huge chunk.
Oh, no, that's no good. Maybe too much red wine at night.
It could well be.
Can I just say something about that?
Yeah.
Just quickly?
Yeah.
Some years ago, a long time ago, I remember I had a row with my husband and he was trying to hug me.
Barbara, you didn't have a row.
And I said, get off me. And he was only trying to hug me. So anyway, that's beside the point.
And had you been drinking red wine, Barbara? That's the point.
Things like that, you know?
Had you been on the red wine, Barbara, when all this happened?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Anyway, yes, I think that Jeremy Hunt, he said a few things like, we should please the European Union by presenting somebody that they can deal with, that kind of thing. And to me, that's appeasement. Because it should be whoever we choose.
But I keep making this point, Barbara, that my friend Michel Barnier got everything he wanted from that negotiation. He took what we called a deal and he wrapped it up, he bound it in leather, and it's a treaty, and he walks about in Brussels with it under his arm. They are not going to change it, Barbara.
No, I don't think so.
Because
I think that I'm hoping that Boris, with good support, Dominic Raab, or Steve Baker, etc., with good support around him, that they'll be able to prepare for no deal and not worry too much about, because I think Jeremy Hunt is already hoping that Parliament will vote it down, no deal.
But what does Boris do about people like Philip Hammond, the Chancellor? What does he do?
Well, I think he's just not got to worry about it. If Philip Hammond is going to try and bring the government down, I mean, goodness, I'm not worried about anything. I think we need some courage and some principles here.
Absolutely, so do I. Barbara, terrific call. Thank you very much indeed. Staying on the South Coast, but this time we're going to be in Peacehaven speaking to Jane. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning, Nigel. I've had a thought that it would appear nobody else has had.
Oh, here we go.
I've been listening to your radio programme the last couple of times that you've been on.
Yep.
And nobody seems to be of the opinion that maybe Boris doesn't really want the gig. You know, Boris is an ambitious man and he wants to be Prime Minister, but he wanted to be Prime Minister in quiet times. He doesn't want this poison chalice. You take, for example, when the Tory leadership, when they elected Theresa May.
When Boris withdrew.
Well, was he not playing cricket or whiff-waff? Or something like that, and he forgot to submit. Would you forget to submit your application?
What he forgot to do was to talk to Andrea Leadsom, who he was going to offer a place in his team, and he was playing cricket, and she had to be called by 6 p.m. on the Saturday night. He didn't do it, and so she announced she was running herself. But Jane, if he didn't want the job, why is he running?
Now that's a good question, and my answer to that is, when all this fell through, they knew that Theresa May was going to end up with egg on her face, and they had nobody else to turn to but Boris. They've looked at Boris, and now he's in shock. That's why he's reacting the way he is, why his demeanour's changed. He's not a man who really wanted this
I see.
job
Okay,
at this time.
no, I get it. Jane, I get it. I was making the point earlier that he just doesn't seem to be himself at all. He almost looks a bit depressed at times, it seems to me. So he's
Look,
kind
his
of...
haircut, that's different.
Well...
His haircut, they changed him completely, and it's not what he wants.
No, so
he wanted to be leader when things went.
He's running, but his heart and soul's not really in it, Jane. That's kind of what you're saying, isn't it? It's a very, very interesting point that nobody's made. Jane, thank you for that. George is calling from Catterick. Good morning, George.
Morning, Nigel. I think that from an outsider point of view, from the Remainer point of view, it's clear that neither have a strong plan. I don't think that... I don't think either can go back and negotiate a deal if we've been told by the EU that that's not going to happen.
And they mean it, George, and they really mean it, you know?
They do. It's clear. They've put their foot down. They've been clear on where they stand from the start. I think they have the right to do so. I don't think they'll get a no deal through Parliament, especially with a by-election coming up that looks likely. I think that Lib Dems will reclaim the seat.
And that then would make the government's majority, even with DUP support, 3.
Very small. I think, what is it, 2 seats?
It would be. It's 5 now. It's 5 now.
Oh, 5, sorry.
But if, as the bookmakers predict, the Liberal Democrats were to win the Brecon and Radnor seat, a seat they've previously held, the government majority would be 3.
Well, I'm sure you'll be looking at that seat, Nigel, but as well. But I do believe Lib Dems will get that. There's clearly a number of Tory members or MPs who don't want no deal. I think the only one who was clear and honest from the start was Rory Stewart. I know you would disagree with his politics, but
I disagree with his politics, George. But I tell you what, I liked his style.
Yeah, same. I thought, I'm 19. I didn't get to vote in the referendum, but I think he was honest, and that's very rare in today's politics.
Yeah. So, but George, here we are, and you're 19. You were 16 when it happened. We're 3 years today on from the referendum. There is, and I would put this to you, there is an increasing breakdown of trust, of belief in our entire democratic system as a result of the fact this has not been delivered. What's the solution, George?
I think it will go to a general election. I don't know if that's the solution. Everyone's saying that Conservative and Brexit Party are splitting the vote, but Lib Dems are taking a lot of Labour seats, and if Jeremy Corbyn doesn't stamp down or really put forward his position, because he's sat on the fence at the minute, we all know that, then I think he'll lose a lot of seats as well.
But Labour are in terrible trouble both ways, aren't they?
Oh, awful. They've got perhaps the underrepresented Labour leavers and a large majority of Labour remainers who are, as shown by the European election, going towards Lib Dems.
Yeah, that's right. And then, just slightly to the north of you, George, in the northeast region, you see the Brexit Party got its biggest score in the whole of the United Kingdom.
Well, I was. I'm in Newcastle. I'm a student at Newcastle, so I actually
okay.
Okay. But yeah.
So Labour really have got problems both ends of this. George,
they really do.
Great call. Thanks for your call. Good luck with your studies. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 11:30. Time for the news with Philip Chryssikos.
Supporters of Boris Johnson say he shouldn't have to answer questions about his private life. They're questioning the motive of a man who heard a commotion coming from the South London flat Mr Johnson shares with his girlfriend for making a recording and selling it to the press. 2 men have knife injuries following a suspected homophobic attack on Merseyside. It happened in the Anfield area. It's thought by 3 boys aged between 12 and 15 years old. Tensions in Iran with the United States have led to several airlines rerouting their services. Saudi Arabia's state airline has joined others in what it's describing as the precautionary measure. LBC weather. Rain in the southwest, moving into western and central parts. As it moves north, turning heavy with thunder. Sunny and warm elsewhere, a high of 27 degrees.
This is LBC. Alan won £15,500 from Lloyds for his missold investment thanks to Goodwin Barrett. If Lloyds or any other bank sold you an investment that lost money, start your quick assessment to discover how much you could be owed. Text SOLD to 66777. Text SOLD to 66777 now.
The Audi A4 Saloon Black Edition has dark matte titanium alloy wheels. It has a sleek black grille, a discreet black spoiler, blackened privacy glass and black leather Alcantara upholstery. So you see, when it comes to style, with the Audi A4 Saloon Black Edition, there are no grey areas. Available from £299 per month with an initial rental of £1,794. Offer ends 30th of June 2019. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik. Business users only. Excludes VAT at 20%. 48-month contract hire. T's and C's apply. No ownership. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
So, what's everyone got for lunch then?
Just a sandwich.
Yeah, I've got the same boring sandwiches yesterday.
Ah, what have you got?
A refreshingly smooth Costa iced latte, a tasty mozzarella and sun-dried tomato pasta salad, and a bag of fancy hand-cooked crisps.
Why have the same thing every day? Pop into Costa Coffee for lunch and pick up your favourite hot or iced coffee with our delicious lunch deal, just £4.95. Costa's lunch deal available between 11 and 2. Visit costa.co.uk for full terms and participating stores.
Love your skin. Love your hair. Love your nails. Perfectil delivers nutritional support from within, including zinc, to help you maintain normal skin, hair and nails. Perfectil, the science of beauty, from Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company. From Boots, pharmacies and Vitabiotics.com.
If you're a frequent traveller in premium, business and first class, is your travel agent charging you too much? Switching to Bright Sun Travel's 24/7 tailor-made travel services means you could pay less on flights and hotels and enjoy free benefits like early and late checkout, room upgrades and hotel credits. Conditions apply. Visit brightsun.co.uk. Atoll protected.
5 out of 5. It's a fantastic smart TV, decent value for money, and the picture quality is incredible. Not that I've actually watched it, never even used it. That's right, this is a fake review, and I can paint quite the picture for the right price, of course, wasting your time and your money.
A fake review could cost you more than you think. A Which membership helps you avoid these lies. Search Which for impartial product reviews. Which, keep questioning.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
A lot of people talking also about Boris, this recording that took place and the rights and wrongs of it. Some people are feeling very, very strongly about it indeed. Boris had an argument with his partner. What great news. It's not public news. The neighbour had no right to send it to the papers. And that is the general view. I have to say, a lot of you saying that they really think it was wrong. As I say, if you heard your neighbours and there was a huge noisy argument, it might be the right thing to call the police if you really think harm might come to somebody, but not to record it and give it to the Guardian. That is horrible. Robert is in Pimlico. Robert, what did you make of yesterday's hustings?
Well, Nigel, I watched it with my wife and my daughter, and I must admit, we all sat there and we thought Hunt did really quite well. He was very clear. He answered the questions. He had a clear view on everything he wanted to say.
Yes, I mean, HS2, for example, Robert, he's asked about HS2, I support it. Boris has asked about HS2, well, I'm not too sure, and maybe there must be an inquiry. No, I agree. Hunt was quite clear. I agree with that.
Yeah, but I mean, the where I get to, Nigel, is I did attend your Brexit rally actually in the Olympia, and I thought it was a great event. And I have been leaning towards Boris, but I mean, I think there's a conundrum because I think Hunt is steady, he'll make a good PM, but I think if it comes to the crunch and he goes to an election, I feel he's not flexible enough, and I think he'll lose, and he hasn't got the charisma. Whereas Boris is kind of risky. Is he really PM material? But he probably can win an election, and he's probably flexible enough to do a deal with you or to surprise the Europeans when in negotiations. So I'm really in a difficult position. I'm privileged enough to have one of these votes because I registered about 6-9 months ago because I saw this moment coming.
So you're
I'm not quite sure.
You're one of this new wave of people that have joined the Conservative Party that are committed Eurosceptics.
That's right. Exactly. Although, having said that, I did vote Remain, Nigel, because I'm a converted and I'm a Brexiteer. I voted Remain because I just thought there would be too much economic turbulence, and I think that is probably still the right analysis. But longer term, the European project is just going in the wrong direction. We need our independence. So I'm definitely, if there was another referendum, I would vote Brexit.
Yeah, so of course it was 3 years ago today, Robert, wasn't it? So Boris, do you think Boris will come through this and win?
I don't know. I do feel he's not himself, but I have some sympathy for him. I mean, at a human level, he's gone through a divorce. That's not easy. Or he's going through a divorce. He's with a new partner. He's had this awful altercation, which has ended up the police coming to his house just before he's about to go to the hustings. I think, with all that in mind, I think if you just remember he's a human being for a minute, I thought he did okay, but he's going to have to improve as the campaign goes on. And I hope he does, because I think if you see the real Boris and you we really believe he wants to get us out. He's got the imagination and the drive to do it. I probably would think about voting for him, but we really need him to turn up, and I feel sorry for him. I think it's pretty appalling. And by the way, I come as a legal training, but I think one of the reasons he doesn't want to comment, because as soon as he comments, it'll be fair game to try and call him out as not being accurate in his comments. So I suspect he's not commenting because he doesn't want to run the risk of then being accused of sort of misrepresenting what happened in some way.
But Robert, hang on, he hasn't got to be specific about it, has he? He just got to say, look, there was a bit of an argument, the police came, there's no difficulty, they left very shortly afterwards. That wouldn't...
Well, but then what someone said, it wasn't a bit of an argument because this is what was said and this is what was thrown. He's trying to downplay it. We've now got evidence that he's trying to sort of, he's trying to obfuscate what actually happened. So I think it's risky, that's all I'm saying.
I think, there's risk either way. There's always risk in life doing things. There's always risk in life not doing things. And I think he's got this one wrong. Robert, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Mervyn says to me, doesn't matter who gets in. None of them believe in the democratic vote this country had. Everyone moaning, digging up dirt on everything. We should have left by now. What's wrong with this country? Well, yes, I know. What is wrong with this country, Mervyn? 3 years ago today, we voted Brexit, and we are nowhere near leaving, it seems to me. But maybe a new Prime Minister can solve it all. Ron is a new caller from Staines. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Nigel. Thank you for taking my call.
Not at all.
As far as Boris and Hunt goes, we've got more chance of coming out of the EU with Hunt as building a snowman in the Sahara.
Right,
I think Boris is the only one with guts enough to stand up to his backbenchers and the Remainers than Jeremy Hunt has. Jeremy Hunt, in my opinion, has been helped by the Remainers into this position so that they can control him.
So you think, Ron, once Boris gets elected, we see brave Boris standing up there defying everybody?
Because Boris, think back to the mayoral side of it, he did, I know he made a few mistakes, but he did do what he said he was going to do. And I'm sure, out of the two of them, Boris is the only one committed to getting out. Now, as far as the no-deal scenario, go for it, because all the critics, all the experts, so-called, have said doom and gloom. I'm quite comforted by that because I haven't got one prediction.
They're always wrong. Yes. Wrong about the exchange rate mechanism, wrong about joining the euro, wrong about what the Brexit vote. No, Ron, I'm with you on that. I get that completely. But Ron, let me just ask you finally, if Boris stands up and says, right, these people in Brussels, there is going to be no change. They're on holiday anyway. We're leaving on WTO terms. If that meant he had to risk his entire premiership and risk being brought down by the House of Commons, do you think he's that brave, Ron?
I think he is, because Europe, I know this is an old adage, but Europe needs our trade. And Europe are not going to be put in the position, say France starts to lose money, and Italy and Spain, the second week of losing money, France will be in the streets. We spend a lot of money in Europe.
Would be interesting to see, wouldn't it, Ron? I agree with that. I mean, imagine if just overnight sales of French cheese and wine came to a halt because of tariffs. They would protest. I agree with you. Ron, thank you. Interesting point of view. Cindy is a new caller from Worthing. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Mr. Farage. Nice to speak to you.
Good to speak to you. We have a lot of South Coast callers today for some reason.
I know. It must be the weather.
Why aren't you outside enjoying it, Cindy?
No, it's not. No, we
or perhaps you are.
It's lovely.
That was gorgeous. So, Cindy, how do you view this yesterday's hustings? Didn't it go on for a long time? Seemed to last forever and ever and ever.
Yes.
15 more of them to come. Who impresses you?
Well, I think it's got to be Boris.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we are part of your party.
Yep.
And as soon as you started it, that was it. But we are now. But we support Boris, and we call him chaotic Boris.
Right.
Because he just looks like he's chaos.
Well, yeah.
He doesn't look like a Prime Minister. I've been listening to the other people phoning you in, your other callers.
Yeah.
But I think he has it. He's got the... I don't know. I prefer to... I trust him more than I would trust... Hunt. I'm sorry.
The chaotic comment. Yeah, well, I made the comment, Cindy, about the fact that he can't shave anymore. He sort of misses bits now.
No, I just think I think there's a lot being thrown at him right now, and I think after what happened in his own private residence, I think that was absolutely appalling. And of course, because somebody's recorded it, and then they've sold the story and whatever, the tape or whatever, I think it's absolutely disgusting. We perceive something, nobody will know what went on with Boris and his girlfriend unless they were a fly on the wall. They're saying things were being thrown. Who was throwing them? We don't know. We all have arguments and we all get frustrated, but they're all sort of assuming they had to call the police because they felt she was in danger.
Well,
that's what got to me. You don't know anything unless you're standing in the room with them.
Yeah, I can't... Cindy, I'm not going to criticise the fact the call was made. It may well have been malicious. It could have been genuine. But what is not genuine is recording through a wall what's going on and giving it to a newspaper. And that is absolutely appalling, Cindy, isn't it?
Absolutely appalling. I don't think it will damage Boris. I think he's trying to keep his head down low at the moment because he knows... he is chaotic. He comes out and he looks all ruffled and he hasn't shaved and you feel
and a sock the other day.
If he walked out of a plane, as you said, and down the stairs, would he look like
a Prime Minister?
A Prime Minister?
Well,
no, he wouldn't. But it's not about the we all judge a book by its cover. Okay, and it's not like that.
No, OK. All right, Cindy, thank you for your call. Now, Judy makes an interesting point. Love the show. We think Boris has lost weight and is on a diet, and it's changing his personality. Dieting changes people, says Julie. Well, I think it's a very, very good point. Being on a really serious diet does change people. He has lost quite a lot of weight. Who is best placed to get us out? Is it going to be Boris Johnson? Is it going to be Jeremy Hunt? Or, I get a suggestion here from Kate, I think Anne Widdecombe could get us out. Well, it's not her position to do so at this moment in time. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Jeremy Hunt has said Boris Johnson did not deserve to lead the country unless he answered questions about his character. What's the line between a politician's private life and the public interest?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
If travelling is your passion, fall for somewhere new. Fly British Airways to St Kitts, an island of 1,000 treasures. With year-round experiences and cultural gems, explore this laid-back island and get to know your new love. September holidays with flights and 7 nights hotel from $629 per person. Fly from Gatwick. Book by July 2nd at ba.com/St Kitts. No one takes you there like British Airways. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. ATOL protected.
When it comes to cruising, you don't want to feel like just another number. Thankfully, the new boutique cruise ships by Saga offer a more personal service.
Hello, Mr. Goodman.
Oh, hello. Giving you flexibility and freedom. What about off-roading on a volcano? A taste of Bordeaux's finest? Or fancy a bit of flamenco? Lovely. Well, thanks to the new Explorer Shore Concierge, no ask is too big. And the smaller ships dock closer to port, meaning more time ashore rather than getting ashore. It's a boutique cruise experience personal to you. Boutique Cruises by Saga, for your spirit of discovery.
Save up to 35% on our all-inclusive cruises. Search Spirit of Discovery to find out more. Over 50s only.
Get Vodafone's double data deal this summer. We're giving away double data on all pay monthly smartphones. Yes, all pay monthly smartphones. Now a huge 30 gig for the price of 15, starting at only £30 a month. Double the selfie sharing, double the playlist pumping, and double the maps mapping. To get double data, go online or in-store today. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone. Terms and details at vodafone.co.uk/summer. Ends 9th of July.
If a bank or a financial advisor sold you an investment that lost money, don't just think, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. Because it might have been missold, and you could be entitled to thousands of pounds in compensation. At Goodwin Barrett, we can do a quick check to discover how much you could be owed. All you have to do to start your investment assessment with Goodwin Barrett is text SOLD to 66777. Text SOLD to 66777 now.
Clearance at John Lewis & Partners Oxford Street is now on. There are thousands of great offers from kitchen and homeware to fashion and beauty, as well as expert advice from our partners and a minimum 2-year guarantee on all our electricals. More of what you love for less. Clearance now on.
Unlock the city with the new Range Rover Evoque. Know your side streets. From your inner city beats. Know your underbelly and where to fill your belly.
The lamb, madam.
Know your north from your south. Live for the city with the new Range Rover Evoque. Land Rover, above and beyond.
Lebanese culture is about sharing, generosity and hospitality, family get-togethers and catching up with friends. And food isn't any different. Experience endless varieties and magical tastes at Marouche, where we bring people together with our healthy, delicious food and warm hospitality. Authentic Lebanese cuisine made the traditional way. Marouche, your family restaurant. Book now at marouche.com.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Loads of commentary about Boris, some about Jeremy Hunt. Jeremy Hunt seems like a safe pair of hands, says Billy from Glasgow. He probably is, Billy, but will he change anything? And Brexit means to deliver it, you've got to change things. Ari, Boris and Carrie, the neighbours probably recorded outside the door of Carrie's flat. After all, they did say they'd knocked 3 times on the door, says Pauline. Pauline, you may be right. Boris is not a Prime Minister. The problem is that you change the driver, but the destination is the same. What could any future Prime Minister achieve that Theresa May tried and couldn't? Boris is a Remainer. Yes, a Remainer. And has no ambition of leaving the EU anytime soon. Watch this space, says Tony from Manchester. Well, Boris was a Remainer through his whole career, but just before the referendum campaign began, he decided to back the Leave campaign, and he's been there ever since. So I don't buy that he's a Remainer, but he is an establishment person. He is a party person, and to deliver Brexit, he is going to have to challenge a whole wing of his party, and actually, he's going to have to dare them. Yeah, dare them to leave the party or indeed to vote him down. I think Boris's neighbour should be prosecuted for being a listening Tom. What next? Naughty pictures of Boris as seen through his window and sold to The Guardian, says Ken from Hampshire. Ken, I agree with that. And I think there must be a limit to this. There must be a limit to how much intrusion there can be. I really do agree with you. Jennifer's a new caller from Twickenham. Good morning, Jennifer.
Morning, Nigel.
So, 3 years ago today we had a referendum and we're still talking about delivering it, aren't we?
I voted to leave. I expected it to happen.
Yes.
I went through the anger phase and now I am into the acceptance phase that whoever is in government, Conservative, Labour, none of them, I mean, we're pretty stuffed as a country because they are never going to allow us to leave. So I think it will be a bit of fun having Boris as our new Prime Minister and waiting. It's going to be interesting watching him and see when he mucks up. Because
Jennifer, you're talking about the next Prime Minister.
But you see, it doesn't matter who is in, what party they're from. There will never be a consensus for us to leave because these are self-serving politicians who they will never want to leave. So whatever the people want, I think I've come to the acceptance that we're not going to leave. We're going to stay in. At least I can carry on bringing, a few cigarettes back from Spain if I go there or whatever. Because
oh, Jennifer, if we leave, we'll get duty-frees back. You'll be able to bring much cheaper cigarettes back from Spain.
Yeah, but you're only allowed one box, Nigel. So I'd rather have 4 at their price. I mean, you've got to think of a bargain. And I've accepted that nobody will be able to get us to leave, but isn't it going to be fun watching Boris?
Okay, well, I get that point. If the real Boris comes back, then yes, it could be fun. But Jennifer, on your bigger point, I disagree with you. I think we are going to leave. The genie's out of the bottle. The polling that I talked about this morning shows that. It's just Parliament has not caught up. Jennifer, thank you for your call. And Ginny takes a sort of similar line on Facebook and says, look, I think the Brexit Party should be supporting Boris. If everything Nigel has said this morning is true, then we are never going to leave because all channels for leaving are blocked. No, Ginny. Ginny, what I'm saying is the way we leave is we get a Prime Minister who is brave enough to stand up before Parliament to say we're leaving on the 31st of October, we're leaving on no deal, we've applied to the World Trade Organization to use Article 24 of the GATT Treaty, we're almost certain that Brussels will do the same, but either way, we're leaving on that date, and they have to dare Parliament to vote them down. They have to dare Parliament to pass the motion of no confidence, and then, Ginny, you go to the country with a clear, uncompromising message against a bunch of Remainers, and you win a big majority, and that's it. Basically, then, you change the men and women in Westminster, and the job would be done. I'm not negative about this at all. What I'm negative about is the ability of either of these two to deliver this on the 31st of October, because I simply don't think they've got the courage. And I absolutely want to be proved wrong. Kevin couldn't care less who's PM as long as they deliver a no-deal Brexit. And Kevin, that is the majority opinion. That is the strongest view of all the options by far. Richard is calling from Oxford. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. I'm not sure I can live through another 15 of those hustings, but let's see. Did we learn anything yesterday, Richard, that we didn't know before?
Not really, Nigel. I'm not a Conservative Party member, so I don't have a vote, but I think if any Conservative Party members had any doubt that Jeremy Hunt was basically Theresa May without the leopard print kitten heels, then they shouldn't be in any doubt now, as soon as Jeremy Hunt used that word populist as a derogatory term, because those are the tactics you'd normally associate with anti-Brexit tabloids like The Guardian, which has had a whole series on so-called populism. But the other thing I would really hope Conservative Party members should consider when they're deciding who to vote for is Ian Dale's interview with Jeremy Hunt on his Wednesday night show, because I think there was some evidence there that Hunt is a Remainer pretending to be a Leaver. And I think that the real reason Hunt is afraid of a general election is not that he's afraid that the Labour Party would get through. It's more that his Remainer pals would disappear in a general election. Definitely Grieve and Soubry, and absolutely, definitely, his strongest supporter, Amber Rudd.
Yeah, I mean, because the party is bitterly split still, Richard, isn't it?
Well, it is, but what you do with a general election is to announce to all of your MPs, do we have collective responsibility or not? I remember you had an interview with Michael Portillo a few months ago. Yeah. He was asking a very pertinent question: is it now to be the case that people can ignore a 3-line whip and still remain in cabinet?
Yeah.
I don't think it should be.
Yeah, it's been a sort of complete breakdown. Richard, a strong leader, says we're fighting a general election on this ticket. If you don't like it, don't stand for us. Of course they do. Of course they do. No, I get that totally. And you just feel Hunt's pretending, yeah?
Well, I do, and some of the things he said on Ian Dale's show, and I would recommend anybody listen to that again, because it's still on catch-up, got the alarm bells ringing, Nigel, because he was saying things like he wouldn't bring anything to Parliament that he didn't think he'd be able to get through, and of course that rules no deal out straight away.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was also saying that we have to pare down the requests that we make to whoever replaces their most excellent excellencies, Tusk and Juncker, in September and October. I don't think he's a real Labour at all.
No, interesting.
He'd be bringing back Theresa May's withdrawal agreement, which is a tweak here or there, and probably saying, well, we've got rid of the backstop, which has always been a bit of a hoax and a red herring. And he would then say, well, that's enough. We should take it or leave it.
Yeah. OK, Richard, thank you. Vote Leave was set up by the Tories to fail. That was the job of Boris and Gove to lose gloriously. Did you see the look on their faces the morning of June the 24th? Utter shock, says Ian in the New Forest. I have to say, I do think I do think both Boris and Michael Gove were astonished when they woke up the next morning to see that the Leave side had won. The very fact they actually went to bed was what surprised me. I certainly didn't. I was waiting for the result. We are going to Queensland in Australia to speak to Ian. Ian, good morning, or good evening, sorry, whatever it is.
Good evening again. Yes, we've spoken before.
We have, I know.
I need to... We have to go back to your interview last week with Rory Stewart.
Yes.
I tried to get back on because nobody was talking about the fact that he was saying, Parliament's never going to let this go through, it's never going to do this, it's never going to do that. And nobody spoke about the 100 or more, you tell me the right number, of MPs in the House who have obstructed all this, being MPs for constituencies that heavily voted to leave.
Oh, yes.
How many were there?
Well, you're looking at far more than that. Far more than that. You've got about 160, I'd say, something like that.
Right. So the point is this. In effect, he was giving them the right to stop it.
Oh, yes.
Now, what Boris needs to do, remind me again,
Yep.
After the summer recess, if they have a proper recess, when do they come back to Parliament?
September.
Is it the 1st of September?
I don't know the date, but it's early September.
Right, well, whatever. So, and when they come back to Parliament, they'll have a new Prime Minister. Let's assume it's Boris. What happens on the first day of Parliament after recess? Doesn't the Prime Minister, won't the new Prime Minister get to speak without being interrupted?
In theory, yes.
Right. So that's when he's got to hit them with it. He's got to say, listen, this is what's going to happen.
Ian, he may well do that, and I hope he does. There are rumours already that Jeremy Corbyn, on that first day, could call a motion of no confidence in him, and that some in his own party. Right. And my guess is, and we're out of time, Ian, and I'm sorry we are, my guess is Boris as Prime Minister will soften, not harden, his Brexit position. That's my guess. I really, really desperately hope that I am wrong. I'll be back with you tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, it's Aisha Hazarika. But right now, here in the studio, it is Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, former Guardian journalist Shiv Malik joins me to discuss his new book about a terrorism hoax. If you remember the man called Hassan Butt, well, we'll be speaking to Shiv at the end of this show today. Before that, a Liberal Democrat councillor has said she was racially abused and harassed as she travelled on the tube by two men who demanded to know where she was from before one of them briefly manhandled her. Are public displays of bigotry getting worse? But